The context matters, and if we set it up as a regular test or just as a regular another online test, then we might be compromising because we need to take care of some aspects that are unique to examination. Okay, so if your subject or your course has got 3 examinations or 3 papers, you need to name, when you are naming the name of the activity, you need to name it exactly how it should be named. If it's the examination paper written, you name it as such. If it's examination paper 3, you name it as such. Okay, so let's name this one examination paper, maybe paper written. Okay, on the descriptions, you need to add information and instructions to students. Let me just duplicate this tab. And migrate it here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you may.
I think that the name you are giving to this regular examination, examination paper written, why can't it be number? Examination paper 3 or paper 2 or paper 1? I wouldn't know, but I don't understand why it should be examination paper written.
Yeah, that's why we say. That's why I say if there are courses which is paper written. If, for example, if just one paper. If you have if in your context, the context of your subject, you have paper 2 or paper 3, you can as well put paper 2 like this. Yeah. So it really depends just on the uniqueness of your course.
Thank you.
Mm. All right. So now in the description here, you need to add some instructions. There are some instructions that we. Now these are people looking for the link. You need to call me back, or I'm in a meeting. Are you trying to join the meeting? Okay, listen. On the email that you received, there is an attachment. On that attachment, there is a link. There is ID, and everything that you are looking for is on the email you received. No. It's on the recent email you received about this training. There is an attachment. Open that attachment. You will find the link, the ID, and so on. All right. So on the settings now, there are some instructions. I was just trying to copy it from the previous session so that I don't type it then from the scratch again. There are some unique instructions that you would normally you wouldn't ask in a conventional or in a traditional or in an invigilated exam, but you would need to put such instructions in such instructions are very crucial.
Sorry, Mr. Unona.
Yes.
Morning, sorry. Okay, so sorry, I apologize for coming in late. I'm trying to figure out you got to this page. I don't know how you came to be on this page.
Yeah, honestly,
I'm
now
trying to follow, but
now, colleagues, this is now like all the other 20 people who came in on time. They must all be paused now there so that I go back and start over. That's the problem of coming in late.
But Mr. Unona, on the program it says that 10:30, 9:30 setting up quizzes. That's why I targeted that one. On the thing that you sent, you said you were supposed to be starting 9:30 of how to set up. The first part was introduction, purposes and focus of the training. So
Yeah,
this
we
is
know
why,
that.
so I went on based on the program that you shared. My
So you
apology.
thought the introduction was not necessary. Okay.
No,
In
no,
any
for
case,
me,
you need to click on add, you need to turn your editing on.
okay, editing on, okay.
Then you need to locate on your course under which section would you like to edit the exam.
I want to, oh, okay, I see.
Most probably under regular exam.
Yeah.
Then you click on add activity or resource, add activity or resource there.
Okay. Mm.
Yeah, then you choose quiz.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
All right. Okay, colleagues, the instructions, I'm trying to put an emphasis on the instructions here to say it's an examination and you need to make some instructions very clear to your students. Okay. Maybe perhaps before I go through the instructions, we also need to emphasize that you need to set this in advance, at least a week in advance, or maybe 4 days in advance, if less. Remember now that all your students are online students, are distance students. They would need to arrange, even though they have the timetable, you know, on the timetable, they don't have any instruction on the timetable. They just know that they will be writing this paper on this date at this hour, but they don't have the instruction, the unique instruction. So we are talking about the unique instruction here that needs to remind them of very, very important aspects. For example, they need to be reminded about arrange for a stable or reliable laptop. Students, sometimes they don't have clue, you know, yeah, they don't have clue. They might just try exam with a laptop that they don't even know the battery status. Maybe it's not plugged in and they don't know the battery. They will be like, oops, I didn't know it only have 20% remaining. And then they will now later trouble you. I couldn't finish my paper because I had this trouble. You know, we have to cut all those things if we tell them in advance. So we need to tell them if they are not, yeah, if they don't have power, they should have, their battery should have at least 3 hours. Then we need to advise them about data. If they are using cellular data, then they should make sure they have at least 2 gigabytes or 3 gigabytes, depending now on how long is your paper. We are not necessarily saying 2 gigabytes is cutting across. So it could be more. Okay. They need to be reminded that they should disable all applications using data or using internet on their devices. And then they should only have the Moodle tab browser open during that time.
I have a question on that.
Yes.
Will you please give us the technique, how you will determine all the applications that uses your battery while you are on, which you need to disable? Because some of these things students are not aware. And what you are giving now is very useful. But for us also, we need to know what do we do so that we advise students, check on this, and then at least they'll be able to disable all those applications.
Yeah, they just need to close. You know, sometimes you know how many tabs, for example, you can have open. Right now, we are using browsers that have multiple tabs.
Okay.
Sometimes we have 50 or even up to 20 tabs open. On this tab, I have YouTube with my video playing on the background. On this tab, I have TikTok. On this tab, I have Facebook. On the other tab, I have Twitter. On the other tab, I have yeah, Instagram, and many others, Wikipedia, Google Scholar. I have a lot of tabs open, and they are all competing for internet resources. Now they need to close all the tabs, and then they should only be left with a tab. Only if you, I don't know, okay, the uppers, the top of my screen now. Let me see if I can move this somewhere. Oh yeah, I can move it at the bottom. If you look at the top of my screen here, for example, you would see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tabs open. Now, if I would do, if the advice on number 4 is that, or number 5 is that, I would need to close all these other tabs, and I should only remain with a tab of 1 tab only. And in that case, because right now I have a tab for my email, and the tab for my email is using data. Any email will come in now, it will, you see, it will be using data. I have other tabs here, and so on and so on. So the advice is that all these tabs, they can not only that they might compete for data, but they may also be confusing. Like sometimes you don't know, you by mistake you click on another tab, and then the student would say, no, my test disappear, but they just perhaps, they might even close it by mistake because they have too many tabs. So if your students are taught this in advance, they will also find out. They also make efforts to find out. But if you tell them on the day of examination, is when they see the instruction, then it's trouble. If they see this instruction a week in advance or 4 days in advance, at least they might make efforts. They might even ask, guys, what is meant here? Yeah, so, but it's really necessary to just to remind them in advance. Yeah, so I still want to, I can't emphasize enough on the point of set the paper put the instruction in advance. Take note that you can add questions with time, right? But the instruction can be there. Your student will not, sorry, I am seeing hands now. Let me just see. There are 2 hands. There is a hand from Deshi and the Hengari. Sorry, I don't know who came first. Perhaps let me start with.
My apology. I already asked the question. Sorry, I was supposed to put my
okay. Hand. Okay. Hengari? Hengari, just unmute and talk to us. I see your hand.
What I wanted to find out or to know is that, can we share some of these standard rules under your description now with the students in advance as a university, so that they are aware that when they enter examination room, only tab so and so should be on, rather than trying to read the instructions there and at the same time also react to the test with all the tensions and so on. What is the possibility of Cordell alerting the students or training them that only the needed steps should be on during an examination session?
Okay, thank you for that, colleague. One thing that we seem to always not able to execute is the training of students. You know, we are now baptized a new name. We are now Center for Innovation in Learning and Teaching, CILT. Yeah, but honestly, we can train students. Otherwise, if you have to train students, then that means we have to switch off from the training of staff and just train students, because the relationship of us to students is so many. But when we share information with the lecturers, we understand that at least the ratio of student to lecturer is not the same as the ratio of us here to students. So you would be able to cascade the information. You just need to do it in advance. But I agree. I want to buy your idea that perhaps the university, at the university level, it can be adapted as such. And it's something perhaps not from sealed, but it's something that perhaps from the registrar or from the office that deals with examination. Yeah, but I absolutely agree with you that it can be done. But while it might take time to, like, if we sell the idea to sealed and other are not sealed, but to either registrar's office or the office that deals with examination. In the meantime, let's as we are right now addressing it, we hope you take note of it, and at least you do your part as well from your side. And then why to be addressed globally, it would also have been addressed by, I mean, at micro level, or at, for lack of a better word, at that level of course level, yeah, so to say.
So, my hand is up.
Yes, Doc, I have taken note.
Thank you very much. What my colleague has just raised now, that was what I was thinking about it. You see, this is involved, if it can be incorporated with computer literacy. Some of our year one students coming in for the first time, they don't have this knowledge. But I wouldn't know how university will incorporate this one into what computer literacy is. So that at the end of the day, they have everything. Because to us now, we are catching up. But to students, there may be problems. But if, when they go for computer literacy, part of this thing is there, or they can react with computer literacy or the university, let this be part of the teaching. And then it will work out well. When they come to you now as a lecturer, they've already gotten the background. So it makes things faster. That is my own view, because I really supported my colleague.
Well received, Doc. View well received, indeed well received. Now that we are here already and the exam is starting tomorrow, though not literally tomorrow, we can only advise to say, when we have Senate meetings and we are looking at, for example, those related courses, especially in view of the ongoing curriculum transformation, perhaps we can all make efforts when we are attending the Senate meetings or related meetings to sell such ideas to our colleagues. But in the meantime, we thought we can address it in the fashion that I'm trying to share it with you, given that the examination is to start tomorrow. So, and for us to share it is merely, number one, is just to put the instructions, even if it ended up being addressed in the course computer literacy, or it's being addressed globally at the university level. Our advice from teaching and learning point of view will still be, let it be part of the instructions. Let it be part of the instructions. And let the instruction be visible to students in advance. Okay? So I would also recommend that we make these instructions, mind you, this is not the only instruction that you add your own instruction and the information that are relating to your subject. Normally we have a cover page on your examination, which will have other instructions or other information to students or to candidates. You also put them, perhaps you can choose which one should be at the top and which, and so on. But I already said I can put more emphasis on this. Your students are now distance students. They need to be reminded of this. They need to arrange for devices. They need to travel to area with better network. They need to subscribe to away gig or to packages, network package, to packages with better internet and stuff like that. So that's why if we give them this in advance, it will at least alert them of what they need to prepare and arrange. Okay, now let's go to timing. At the timing here, we do not, it's usually not controversial, but it usually attracts a lot of discussions or concerns and so on and so on. What I will try to explain here, we will not try to prescribe per se. We do not always want to prescribe. We want to explain things to you colleagues, and then you apply as per the uniqueness of your course and the uniqueness of your students. If the paper is a 2-hour paper, in actual fact, before you, if the paper is usually a 2-hour paper, you need, within your department, you need to meet and then pass perhaps a resolution or so, and the discussed about now that this paper is to be written online. Would it still be 2 hours? Or perhaps it will now be 1 hour, 30 minutes? Or perhaps it will be 2 hours, 30 minutes? You need to come to that conclusion. We at Field can't advise on that. This is where we can end to say, we can only alert you to say time might change. Okay, depending on the uniqueness of your course and the uniqueness of your students. I was giving an example yesterday of one of our colleagues whom you were training from the School of Military Science. The colleague from School of Military Science was making a point to say, look, my students, the student I have on this course, their exposure to computers is very minimal. Okay, so their pace of working on the computer is really pathetic. They are trying, but their pace is quite pathetic in their use of internet and so on. Therefore, I think I'll need to increase the time here, or I need to increase the number of attempts. You see, that is a unique situation that the person explained, and he needed also to discuss it at the school level or at the department level, so that uniformity or the fairness can be factored in to say, look, but why did you increase time for this group and not the other group? And then people can have reasons, and such reasons are documented. Okay. So if it's a 2-hour paper, then if whether it's because 2 hours is the really time needed as per the original blueprint of the course assessment, or perhaps it's because of arrangement, because of the online context, you have the option to say, okay, maybe let's say starting on the exam is on the 5th, just as an example. So if it's starting at 10, you have the option to say, well, everybody must start at the same time and end at the same time. So if it's 2 hours and they start at 10, the end time must be 12. So there's no, this would mean everybody starts at the same time, and everyone will only be given until this hour. So in this case, you may not need to indicate, you may also not indicate time limit here, because it's obvious time limit is already built in here. But in case you would want to give some flexibility of a sort, maybe you want to give a buffer time, okay? Let's say you want to give buffer time. Okay, do I have my colleagues in the room today? Because I see there will be some chats that I will not notice until we are far. looks like my colleagues are engaged elsewhere. I don't see any of my colleagues here. So colleagues, bear with me in the chat. Okay, there's nothing much, but again, I noticed the point from Sophia. Okay, so if you want to add a buffer, perhaps you can say, well, it's a 2-hour paper, but you are giving students maybe a 30-minute buffer or a 1-hour buffer. So it's starting at 10, obviously, and then you will say they can write. In this case, there will be 2 hours. You need to indicate 2 hours here. And take note, please, if you go with this, take note that we have selected the correct unit of time here. If by any chance you select minute, it happens last year. After 2 minutes, every students were kicked out because the system was told they only have 2 minutes, and then the exam was compromised. Okay, so you need to select the correct hours. So this would mean your students have 2 hours. Somebody can start writing at 11, then finish at 13, or somebody can start writing maybe 10:30, then they will finish at 12:30. So you have a 1-hour buffer that somebody might start a little bit, but there can be some implication, but it depends on the uniqueness of your situation. You may choose either to go with the buffer where you have a little bit of flexibility, or you go with a strict time to say everybody must just start at the same time and they should just finish at the same time. Okay, then at the option when time expires, we strongly recommend that you leave it on this default. Open attempts are submitted automatically. Please do not tamper with this one. Leave it on this default. The implications are that when you choose other options, student can seriously be affected. Because if it's an essay type of question, for instance, then I wrote 2 paragraphs, then the time is up. You see, time expires. And then, for example, you have attempt must be submitted before time expires or they are not counted. Then that means, yeah, I'll be with you now. That means my 2 paragraphs are gone. But if they could have been submitted automatically after the time expires, at least maybe I could have scored even 4 out of 10, even if it's incomplete, rather than having it thrown away completely. Okay, please do come through.
Yes, I wanted to find out when it comes to the timing. What number? Because some of the courses are having very, very big numbers, like 1,500 or so students. And if I say strictly 2 hours, when they start at the same time and they end at the same time, would you have the capacity to handle that or not as a system?
In the past, based on data based on previous practices, such cases were handled by the server with no implications. It's just that only that the questions need to be. We'll later come to, okay, maybe I need to answer that question in relation to another setting. That setting is on, the question are shuffled. There will only be implication if they not shuffled. No, this is not. This is not it. Yeah, it's here. Man, yeah. I shuffled. Sorry, colleagues. It's shuffling. Yes. The only implication, they can only be bad implication if the questions are not shuffled. If the questions are not shuffled, that would mean 1,000 students accessing one question in that very instance, at that very second. One question, there can be implication on the server. But when we shuffle the question, that means question number 1 for student number 80 is not the same as question 1 for student 60 and so on and so on. You see? Then they are accessing the questions differently at different times. Then there are no implications.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on. Let's come to grade, and we pay more attention to under grade. We pay more attention to attempts allowed. Now, the number of attempts here, it refers to how many times can the student try that test out. Now, you may relate to the examiner I was narrating earlier, the scenario of, from School of Military, that the colleague thought, no, let him give at least up to 2 attempts because of the uniqueness of his students. At least he knew the type, at least he was convinced that the type of question he asked them, they wouldn't cheat because it's typical high level, high order thinking. You can even open a book and you still won't, if you don't understand, you just don't understand. You won't get it. You only get it if you have mastered the outcome, the learning outcome. It doesn't matter whether you try to cheat. Yeah, so he put 2 attempts. Now, 2 attempts would mean you can start writing, got interrupted, and then you come back and write again. Now, this is pro, or this can support cheating and yeah, and so on. But there are other settings that will come up that can counter that. But also, it's not compulsory. We are obliged to explain everything to you, the 2 sides of the coin in each case. Okay, and then you make your own decision based on the uniqueness of your situation. Okay. So let's say now we go with 2 attempts, and obviously with 2 attempts we would recommend the last attempt at the grading method. Then at layout, we recommend every question, 1 question per page. Every question on its own page. Don't tamper with it. Okay, students see 1 question and then they answer it. Then if they want to see the next question, they click next. So they will not see more than 1 question at the page at once. Okay, then the navigation.
Sorry.
Uh-huh.
I think back to the grade category with the attempts. Maybe the colleague can also advise in here, because from the experience, when we do these quizzes and all that, students, there's always this issue of students saying they were thrown out of the system and the power went off, or and I'm not always sure how to deal with that, or they would send you proof that they will send you proof that the site was not reachable. And I'm actually saying these things, reading some of the excuses that were sent to me when I attempted a quiz on Moodle. So in the exam, because I'm not sure if there's any instructions given when we are setting this online exam. So how do we deal with some of these unavoidable things? Because look, if power went off, there's not much one can do. So at the same time, fearing that if you give more than one attempt, the possibility of cheating is there, or the possibility of sharing. So how do we deal with some of these technical issues, or even, you know, I don't know. Just some advice, perhaps.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't get your exact question though.
My question is, it's, I don't know whether it's even, I'm okay. I'm not sure how to deal with, okay, I'm not sure how to deal with this, whether to do one attempt, you know, to allow one attempt or two attempts, considering that with Moodle and the experience that we've had, that students face challenges that are beyond still understanding the instructions that you've given. So
Okay.
the what are the implications of one, of giving, let's say, of just one attempt versus two attempts?
Okay, okay. Well, okay. Let's look at this.
Okay, sorry, the reason I'm asking this, Mr. Unona, is because from experience, when I assess students, I gave them quiz on here when I tried. There's always an excuse, ma'am, the power in our neighborhood went off. Ma'am, the computer froze. Ma'am, the Moodle was not working, or Moodle threw me out of the system. You know, these technical and, you know, things, I don't know, maybe some other colleagues can advise what, you know, in how they deal with these issues.
Well, those are really issues. I wouldn't shy away from admitting that there can be such issues. But you see, that's why we say you can give two attempts based on your unique situation, but you need to agree. You need to take a collective approach now from the department. Okay, the only thing that we do not want to prescribe. Like I said, we want to explain the two sides of the coin, and then the academics can take an approach based on the uniqueness of their courses and their students. Okay, so you can then choose to have, if you are convinced that you have such cases are likely to happen. For example, we didn't carry out research or survey to establish the extent of such prevalences, but maybe deducing just from your experience, you may, for example, if you have 100 students in your course, how often did this happen, and how many students did it affect? If the numbers are significant, you might be convinced to say, no, I should just make the attempts too. But on the other hand, if you say, well, how often did this happen, and how many students have been affected, and the numbers are not so significant, that means, you know, when the numbers are not, when I say numbers not so significant, I mean, for instance, if it's only quite minimal, somebody would ask what is a number to be minimal? Might be such that such student can be handled, can be given the same paper, can be given a chance. Mind you, there are other what is the word? There are other avenues that can be explored. For example, if it's two students and you quickly investigate, because we can investigate on the system whether the student was, you see, the student's claim was genuine. If it's quickly established, we can reopen for those students. And then others are closed out, and then we reopen for those students, and then they write. But if it affects a lot of students, one might decide to say, no, let's just instead put 2 attempts. Okay. But on the risk of 2 attempts now, as we go with the rest of the setting, we will see what are other what are the counter actions, such that even if somebody is having 2 attempts, they will not be able to cheat. It's completely cheat proof.
Okay.
If they start word. It feels like the colleague want to either add more, or I'm getting that gesture.
No, I think no, I get it, but I think I wish the exam office, our registrar's office, could also, because normally there are examination rules when it comes, that they send out there, but it seems like now everything is just left for the lecturers to swim alone without any life jackets. But I wish there could be some kind of also guidelines in terms of how to deal, like standard rules on how to deal with online examinations.
I agree with you.
And for as it is from last year, everything is left at the discretion of the lecturers, and we are also learning these things for the first time. Some of us have never taught on distance before, and we are teaching on distance, we are assessing on distance, and we have, and it's a trial and error, and it's messing up not only us but the students. So it will also be I think helpful if the exam officer can also provide some rules and regulations in terms of how we're supposed to set our exam, not to compromise the quality, not to compromise, to also avoid some of these things. Because now as a lecturer, I choose attempt 2, my colleague who's doing the same thing and from another department choose attempt 1 for, for this online, it opens up 1,000 questions, unfortunately. So
I concur with you. We were hoping for an Indaba, we were hoping there was an Indaba coming up for online examination, an institutional dialogue on this online examination. But because of this, we are all aware of, we are undergoing transformation in the number of meetings, and and the structures are not yet been together until at this moment. Unfortunately, the Indaba couldn't take place. But we were hoping that during that institutional dialogue, we could have really addressed and adapt a collective stance institutionally. But unfortunately, maybe that is yet to happen in the future, because, and unfortunately, with this examination, we have to go that way alone. But I do not want to say let's just go alone. I still want us. I strongly advise that meet within your departments. Meet within your departments. We know last year some things, some issues were bubbling, and they always end up here sometimes, even though we have to push them elsewhere, because we are technical support and we don't have much to dictate, to say do it this way. Yeah. So to be safe, make a decision from a department. If you do it alone, we foresee you might survive. It might go through without being noticed if there will be no issues cropping up. But if there happen to be issues cropping up, then it might also put you in an uncomfortable position, because question might be asked, okay, but how did we arrive here? But in your department, if you call for a dialogue, okay, guys, we know this exam is coming. What approach do we take? Okay, let's invite somebody from CRT. If there are specific questions that we need to ask them, so that they join our meeting, and then you take some collective, you manage such meetings, and then at least you know that, well, you have done something and you took a collective decision. That's at least what I can advise.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's go on, colleagues. Let's come back.
Let me just come in. I just logged in. I have now my sound working.
Okay.
I just want to compliment what I think Desi was speaking. It did happen to me as well at some point last year. But anyway, but when we're dealing with the exams, the situation a bit more complex. The exam rule, they should be all the same throughout the university, because like Desi said, if one lecturer is saying, I'm doing this, another lecturer is doing that, then the student, they have avenue to complain because other lecturers are doing certain things. So that one exam setting, we should have a collective approach, the entire university. Other one option, I think that should be the standard rule. Or if you're going to have a two option, then we'll have to have a safety mechanism, how students they are not going to copy. And I'm speaking from a law perspective, other people might have a different experience. But now if you give them two options, so the student have their cell phone, then they make copy of the picture of the question, then they go to the next computer, they go to the internet to find out what the answers will come back, then they log in the second option. So it's no safety in this case. So it should only be normally one attempt. Let's see, that attempt to finish an exam, so then the student can go to supplementary exam or other exam, not doing the same thing twice. At least that's my view. So other colleagues may have a different views.
Yeah, perhaps before we get another view on that particular issue, perhaps it's necessary if I go through the area I indicated. If you have two attempts, there are other settings that you can combine that will make sure that student won't cheat. That two attempts will not necessarily make it, won't be helpful for student to cheat. Okay, one of them is a navigation. The navigation should be sequential. By sequential, we mean you see one question at a time, but also if you see question one and you go to question two, you can go back to question one. We are aware of the point like, no, but students are disadvantaged, but we are in a unique situation here now, and we may not really, there are privileges that have to be lost as changes prevail. Unfortunately, change is prevailing, and not all privileges we had in an invigilated exam would be carried over to the online examination. So the student will lose the privilege of paging back and forth of the questions. Okay, so but it will help, because if you see question 2 and you go to question 3, you can go back to question 2. If you wish to cheat on question 2, it's not, you will not be cheating on the next attempt. You must cheat on that attempt, because when you come back in question in attempt 2, the attempt 2 will not give you a chance to go back to question 2, because you have already checked it, you have already attempted it. Okay. So let me.
Excuse me, before you go, you are complaining about chat. There is a question on chat now. I want you to look at it.
This is not a question. This is just a concern. And this is exactly what I have explained to say. Okay. Unfortunately, with change, there are some privileges that have to be lost. We need to compromise on some privilege. It's not a question. The colleague is only expressing a concern to say it's not fair and it's not just. So another counter cheating attempt, setting is here. Each at question behavior, if you have more than one attempt, if you click yes here, each attempt builds on the last. This means in the first attempt, if the test has got 10 questions, the paper has got 10 questions, né? In the first attempt, I have answered 5 questions. In the second attempt, if this is clicked yes here, The system, when you come back, the system will only give you a chance to answer from question 6. It will not give you a chance to answer from question 1 again. What happened to question 1 up to 5? You won't see them. If you went to prepare to say you are going to look for answers for those questions and come back, you will be surprised, because the system, if he set to yes here, you won't see those questions. So I want us to get it that attempt two attempts will not necessarily make student cheat. If and only if this combination of settings are correctly and appropriately set as such. Okay, sequential, and each attempts build on the last. We can even eliminate sequential and say, well, the navigation is free. But this is dangerous. Okay, even if you, but in the context of 2 attempts, even if the navigation is free, you won't be able to, in your second attempt, you won't be able to go back to the question that you have already answered. If you answer all the questions, then you thought you would come back, the system will tell you have already answered all the questions. Okay, but I understand this can be a big deal. That's why we have added part of the instruction. The unique instruction, we have added this point. Please note that the questions will be answered in the order from first to last. Perhaps one will be able to extend this instruction to say, you will not be able to go back to previous question. If this instruction is put here, the student is aware. If this instruction, and it's dangerous when you set it to sequential and you don't put this instruction in bold, because some students, in their attempt to cheat now, we have seen it last year. The student is next, like maybe they do what you have observed, they are screenshotting. Next question, screenshot it. Next question, they screenshot it. And then, too bad for them, the system was set to sequential. When they try to come back now after they research on the answers, the system wouldn't allow them to go back, because every question that is skipped is treated submitted, because it's sequential. So now one have to weigh. If you have to put it on a scale, put it on the scale, the sequential navigation and the free navigation, in the context of the fear that the student will cheat. See now on the side of the scale which one will weigh more, and make a decision. From my angle, I would think I will put sequential, but I would think it's important to let students know. But I admit, to a certain extent, they lost privilege to skip some questions that might be difficult, and and so on. I admit that, but I need to reach a compromise. Colleagues, where we are standing right now, these settings are key. The right combinations of settings is very important in the context of examination. We have noticed from the previous examinations that some colleagues would just not really mind about other settings. They will just go, okay? They will just go and then save. They will not mind much about it. And then later, we have data, students are cheating, and then we blame the system, and so on and so on. But at least, if one look at the combination of these settings, you will notice that at least, even though it will never be 100%, mind you, even in an invigilated examination, it's never 100%. You still catch student cheating here and there. It's never 100%. But we feel, based on these settings, the combination of these settings, a lot of cheating attempts can be countered. Should we proceed to other settings? These settings are very important, or do we have, okay, let me look at the chart.
So far, so good.
Sequential applies even with one attempt. Yes, it does. Even with one attempt, you can indicate sequential. It applies to one attempt also. Yeah. Okay, these are only just information. The chat.
Yeah, just to complement, I already do that. So I think Philip is from my faculty, he helped me. So I put sequential and I give them notification already in the first page, and that you're not going to be able to go back. But of course, after the test, they always complain, they like to navigate freely. Yeah, but explain to them exactly as you've done. So I'm not testing the internet, I'm testing them.
Thank you for the feedback. Yeah, I mean, it's an issue of having no choice. Okay, just remember, if you put 2 attempts, strictly make it each attempt build on last. So they want, when they come back, they are left with, even time, ne? Oh, there are hands here. Okay, even, yeah, the hands, okay. Even time, ne? With, if you put each attempt build on the last, if the student, when they left, if the paper is 2 hours and the student wrote up to 1 hour 30 minutes, when they come back, the system only give them 30 minutes. That's what you were remaining with when you left, when you were interrupted, and your 2 questions that you didn't answer here. That's how it. And then we feel it's really fair. Dr. Tenegu and Sophia, sorry, I didn't see your hands earlier.
Thank you very much. I think by the time I raised my hand up for quite a long time, but I will still say something, because I believe that when Meme Namupala was talking, you made mention that you have never done any survey to observe some of those companies. So how do you do the survey when you are not teaching the students? The survey you can get is to rely on what we lecturers are giving. Because yesterday I gave a test online and I started receiving a lot of comments. And when Namfala was saying it, I was impressed, because she was able to cover what I wanted to say. But the word of your survey is what I don't understand. Because if we say something, we are not cooking it. These are real experiences from all the lecturers involved, including me. So I will appreciate what you are doing now is quite very good, and how we can solve the problem. Because I wanted to complain about that of contemporary social issues, where they tell you that it's stated there the test opens from Monday till Saturday or till Wednesday. You know what I observed was, as we discussed already, screenshotting. Some they use somebody as a scapegoat. You open, you continue opening that time, and then that person will now go back. You know, all those things are frustrating, and when you see it, you complain. How can we control all this? So you made mention of sequential. Well, I will still see what I can do. But to me, all these things that we are saying, somebody needs to be taking it down, jot it down. After this presentation, go and do your survey on our presentations or on our complaints, so that you'll be able to come up with a very solid idea to help us as lecturers. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc. Sophia?
Yes, Mr. Nona, thank you for the opportunity. I think mine goes back to the description. It's just a suggestion to your team, maybe because of the Indaba that cannot take place. If we could have a few rules that can be, we can use a drop-down menu to select some of the rules. I'm just, because talking of the background where I'm coming from, I think we need to standardize some of the rules, because I will write a rule, but then I don't write it fully, and maybe technically English, it's not that well, or I'm a scientist, but then the way I'm writing it, it might not come out clear. So if we could have a few rules, let's say if there are 10, and then a lecturer, if you are saying the exam office cannot do it now, then the lecturer can actually tick on what needs to be applied. And then if there is none, let's say one of the rules that might say a calculator, use a calculator in doing this, then the specific lecturer can just add that specific one. So I don't know whether it's possible, but I think it's doable. I just want a standardization. It's an exam and it's a quiz. We should be very, very careful in doing this. Thank you.
Mr. Unona, I think to add to what Sophia said, suggestion, communications and marketing on the portal and then on the Moodle dashboard, there's a provision for putting instructions. For now, because we don't have time, could we perhaps ask your office to liaise with communications and marketing and to liaise with computer department, IT, computer center, I don't know what is the new name, for them to actually use some of these instructions in liaison with the exam to say, please share these examination instructions with the students on their portal, on the Moodle dashboard, where the students have all these, the same way you have all the courses and whatnot, all these other platforms that, to make it easy for students, so that the students are aware of some of these, because they are standardized instructions that you've given us here, which some of us never even thought of. We have our colleagues who are not attending this workshop for reasons, and maybe some cannot. Their students could also benefit if maybe your office could liaise with those offices and share these instructions on one of these platforms. Would that be possible if we could suggest you to do that with the respective departments, offices?
Yeah, definitely. I thank you for the suggestion on the instructions and the information we can share on those platforms. I completely agree with you. On the rules, though, the rules it's tricky. It's a pity that the Indaba couldn't take place as we thought it could. We were really looking forward to it, because we are also sitting in an uncomfortable position when you are confronted with situations and you feel like, but there's a vacuum of policy, or there's a vacuum of some standardized approach. You see, yeah. So we can't really suggest the rules. It could take long, because now we need to send them to the director. The director will need to take them up with the VC, the PVC. The PVC need to see, and we know how long things take to be endorsed. And yeah, we would need a meeting with the examination officers, and you see. But right now, where we are, examination starting tomorrow, perhaps we can, in the meantime, only go with the idea of sharing these generic instructions with on those platforms as suggested. So ever since, okay, this seems to be not a question in the chat. It looks more to be, yeah, just a comment, just a comment. Okay. But thank you for that comment. So I do not want to pronounce your name. wrongly. Yeah, but thank you for the comment. Let's continue with the settings here. At least the upper, this one, the one that we're emphasizing on, are the key one that one need to combine correctly if to one is really help to counter cheating. Okay, on the review options, we recommend that you don't tick any box here. Okay, but for enrichment purpose, if you look at, there are 4 groups of, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, there are 4 groups of settings or yeah, items here. During attempt, immediately after the attempt, later while the quiz is still open, after the quiz is closed. Now, this is only relevant in the normal quiz, in the summative, not summative, but in yeah, in the assessment for teaching and learning. Yeah, but if you click anything here, then it will somehow release the result to students immediately, and then which is not ideal, because you know, in the context of examination, there is a date. The paper should be moderated, and there is a date when a general date when the university authority decides the result will be released. And this will not even be complete result, because this result will still need to be computed together with the CA marks on the other system to, yeah. So for that reason, for reasons like that, would really recommend that you just leave it unchecked, everything, leave it unchecked here. On the, yes?
Yeah, just before you go on, I see now that everything is unticked, so put it by default, not ticked, because it used to be by default already ticked.
Yeah, by default it's not ticked.
Yeah, so thanks for the change, because last year it was ticked by default.
But there's an attempt ticked.
Yeah.
No, last year that's how it was, but it's now changed. I saw it in also the first semester changed.
Yeah, the gray ticked, the gray area, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about the grayed out one. On the appearance, perhaps one thing I can one thing that might be of significance here is the decimal places in the grade. Would you like your marks to be? Would you like your marks to be in decimal place? I mean, yeah, in decimals, or would you like your marks just to be rounded? If, for example, you leave it to 0, your marks will, if the student score 40.5, it will be just to round it to 41. If they score 40.4, it will be rounded to 40. That is if you leave it to 0. But if, for instance, you say it should be to 2 decimal places, then it will be rounded again to just exactly to 2 decimal places. So it all just depends on your course. So if you do it in grades, perhaps you can as well just do the same on the question grade. That means the marks for that particular question for individual questions can be 2 decimal place, and then the overall grade or the overall mark will as well be 2 decimal places. But it wouldn't do much harm if you leave it also on default. The safe examination browser, you leave it. It can be tempting. Ideally, it would have been really nice to counter cheating, but it's an incomplete project that is being tried out. And mostly, it's not really incomplete. It's just that to implement it, you need everybody to have the same device or to have calibrated devices, and that's almost impossible. You can't have calibrated devices for students. So for that reason, you just leave it out. Extra restriction on attempt. We here we would, the significant aspect here that we would want to draw your attention to is a low quiz, no, not here, student cognizance of plagiarism policy. You need to select must be acknowledged before starting attempt. So this will trigger a message that the student need to tick off that they agree that to the plagiarism and the copying policy. They consent. Okay, webcam validation. Also, this one would be ideal, but it needs to have calibrated devices which you don't have control over. Because if a student has got their unique devices, they did not to get device from one place. Okay. Okay, overall feedback, you leave it blank. More so for examination, you don't give any feedback. And a common module setting, you select no grouping here. Okay, as per yesterday's discussion, there were some concerns with regard to those students who qualified to write the exam and those who don't qualify. We had some issues last year, and some colleagues were able to share their experiences. And what time is it? Okay, not too bad. So eventually we agreed to say we'll just put this statement here. Put this statement here. Only those who have qualified for examination should write or attempt this paper. Yeah. So because last year we have it open, some students later complained like, why do you let me write exam if you know that I don't qualify? And yeah, it was an issue, and it was some issue for some colleagues also have to mark, like mark, and they ended up marking some people who don't qualify. So at least if you have this exemption here, make it part of the instruction. Only those who have qualified should write the exam. Then at least you indicate no grouping, then it's just it's fine. All right. On not here. Okay. This restrict access. It's not necessary. I will explain it after here. Activity completion. If you this activity completion is necessary in the context of supplementary examination. Okay, so no, I think it's under here. Okay, in the context of supplementary examination, one need to add to restrict others by activity completion. Okay, so these issues confusing sometimes, but this activity completion within restrict access. So one can then say maybe they must have completed examination paper 3 already. Okay, and they must have scored up to this much. Okay, I'll pick anything at random. So must have completed this activity. And if I add another combination, and they must have scored, between this percentage and the other percentage. Yeah, so this is only necessary for supplementary examination if in case. Okay, then after that we save and display.
Sorry, can you go back to that strict access? I think, or activity, what do you call activity completion? I think you were a bit.
Activity okay.
Oh, I think. Oh, you want to add restriction.
Yes, add restriction.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Then I want to select the activity that must have been completed. All the activities from that particular course will pop up. Then I will have to select the right activity. Okay, must be marked complete. And I need to add, if they need to score a certain grade, then I need to indicate the grade must be between this and that percentage, must be more than or equal. Okay. Then I still need to indicate that same activity that I selected here should be the same activity, test with external where is it? Yeah, should be the same. Yeah. And then I indicate the percentage here. So I do not want to save this one for now because I don't have this completed by anybody to bring me complications.
Mr. Ntemi, so this restrict access, can it not be also used for those who do not qualify to write exam if the CA marks doesn't allow them? I mean, and this is, I'm asking this in relation to what you said earlier. Obviously, the instructions are there that you put up there that you must, you must qualify to attempt this paper, but students don't always pay attention. So can one set this to prevent students who do not qualify for the exam not to attempt the exam?
Yeah, you can. You can, and you can use user profile. Now it has implications.
Okay.
The implication depends on your course size and the number of students who don't qualify. So if your course size is, for example, you have 200 students and 50 of them do not qualify, that means you need to add 50 of them one by one here. Okay, so you choose. Yeah. Yeah, it has implication, and you might leave them out. So the option I was trying to avoid explaining is on the grouping. You can set up groups, and then you have the group of students who qualify and the group of students who don't qualify. You set up, the groups are set up on a separate platform, not platform, but on a separate not under quiz setting. Okay. So when you set up groups and you place students who qualify in one group and those who don't qualify in one group, it would be easy to indicate, well, visible groups. And then when you are adding a restriction here, now it will be a combination of this setting and this one. You can easily say which group you choose. I don't have any group set up on this course. That's why it says choose and then there's no group name. But then you would then choose a group that you have named qualified. Then the rest will be they will be out. But this, from last year's experience, this was not ideal because we had a situation of the reason why we even thought this year it's not ideal is perhaps we have a similar situation last year where some colleagues did not submit CA marks on time. Some CA marks, both in full-time setting and distance settings, were not up to scratch until the time of writing examination. Okay, then there was trouble. Like, what if you said it's more dangerous? It's it's more dangerous to have students writing by mistake, even though they did not qualify. Yeah, not dangerous, but it's more easy to handle. To have students who wrote exam but they don't qualify. As long as we have this disclaimer up here, that student cannot trouble you because you just look the instruction clearly said if you don't qualify, don't write. But if you put a restriction, and by any chance maybe there was a student who qualified and by omission or whatsoever, that student could not write because of the restriction you put, but they qualify. It is more it's more dangerous because that student will confront you with facts, and then you end up setting another paper for that student. You see the implication, right?
Yeah, no, I understand.
Okay. Why must the system? Okay, look, colleagues, it's not the system that should allow students to write, it's you. You need to tell this you need to set that on the system. So you need to tell the system you have the choice. I hope you get what I was explaining right now, the implications. Okay, you choose to tell the students, okay, if you don't qualify, don't write. Or you also have a chance, if you know that your administration, your student administration, and your mark administration is top notch. Okay, there's no error, there's no degree of error whatsoever. You can take chance and group your students into those who qualify and those who don't qualify. You group them on the system, and then you automatically discriminate against those who don't qualify. Even if they come to the system and they won't write, then it's out. But if you happen to have a case where somebody qualify and they end up not writing, then you have more trouble. Okay,